Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Solo to Entrepreneur Show. You're with me, the host, Lorraine Chai. We are talking about all things business. So, in regards to business, the success of business all depends on the outlook of what success is. And here today, I have with me is Jonathan Wright, who is from Canada, who will be sharing his journey towards success. So, welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Now, in terms of success for you, you've gone down the path of many different areas, and I'll start with with your first choice of joining the military. How did that decision come about?
Well, for me, out of high school, I was educated the same way we all were, which is really to fit into some sort of box where you're an employee in some way, shape, or form. You're going to work for the rest of your life, and hopefully, cross your fingers, you'll have enough to retire at the end. And when I looked at the military option, they were giving me a free education, which means I had no student debt to worry about. They were paying me while I was going to school, which was a huge benefit. And I had a guaranteed retirement package after a set period of time. So for me, it was pretty much having the formula written ahead of time without having to gamble in the job market. And so many of my friends had older brothers or sisters that were going to university, getting degrees, and they were working minimum wage jobs because they could not find work in their field. And I didn't want to be that person. So for me, the military was just an easy way to get into employment and to get amazing experience as an additional benefit to it.
Fair. So like I come from Malaysia and we didn't have that option back in the day. So that wasn't an option in terms of okay, military, that means free education, that's a way out. It was more of okay, you hustle. And the thing for me was being an Asian in Malaysia was we were considered as the minority in terms of Indians and the Chinese, where you just got to work your ass off. And that's how we got our success in a country like that when it's not our original country. So with you into the military and coming out of it and getting into real estate, like what's your thought process with that? Because like that's a strategic move with you getting the education and then branching out.
Right. Well, I mean, when I retired from the military, I was still relatively young and I was way too young to retire. I got bored about 6 months or 6 hours into my retirement. So I started looking out for things to do. And, I was introduced into real estate from a symposium that was happening locally. I was fascinated by the idea of it. I mean, it's very simple numbers for me. I'm a numbers person. So I learned a little bit more about it. So I took a little bit of additional training, kind of pulled it apart and realized what worked and what didn't in my markets, and sort of developed my own formula. And I jumped right into it. So I started building relationships, started buying properties, and started scaling very rapidly because again, it all came down to the numbers.
Now, numbers is very important, and that's how I grew my own business as well. And that's how I tell my clients you have to know your numbers before you send it over to your accountants, always and always, forevermore. Now, with you and numbers, and with the strategic move that you had from the very beginning, did you come through challenges? Because people think that success is always easy. Did you come through challenges, and what was your biggest challenge for you?
Well, I mean, there's challenges in business no matter where you go. And I had challenges right from day one. I mean, even my first deal, right up until the 11th hour, I had financing fall through. I had to find a new lender 2 days before closing. I had to build relationships very quickly. I had to learn by doing. And that's why business is so challenging for most people because they don't have what it takes. They don't realize that business is not easy. It's not a 9 to 5 job. It's 24/7. And challenges can come up at any given time. You can have a lot of sleepless nights as you're trying to wrestle a solution to try and, get past whatever obstacle before the next one gets thrown in your face, and you constantly have to adapt. So for me, it was just the persistence of it. And a lot of that I learned in the military where failure was not an option. And I just applied that into business. So that came down to the discipline, that came down to getting up early every morning, making my bed in the morning, just getting into that routine where I'd be up early enough where I could start solving problems before anyone made it to work. So when everyone else that I was dealing with started working, my solutions were ready to be implemented. Let's go.
Mm.
So that helped me get a head start on everyone else, and it helped me stay one step ahead. And it's good to be that disciplined, and you have to self-discipline because there's no one holding you accountable. You're the owner of the business. You're the entrepreneur. You have to hold yourself accountable. So you have to have that right out the gate. Otherwise, it's going to be very challenging in today's climate to be able to be competitive.
Absolutely. So, like with opportunity comes in many different shapes and forms. And for me, opportunity is always there, right? So whether or not you see it. So for yourself being Canadian and for me being in Australia, for me, it doesn't matter in terms of where I fly to. If an opportunity comes, I'm there. And we met 2 years ago, give and take.
Yeah, sounds about right. 2 years.
Yeah, two
Yeah.
years ago. So for you to travel from Canada to US and wherever you need to go, like what's your thoughts on that? Because I know some people are like, oh, that's too far, even though an opportunity comes their way.
I don't see it as too far. For me, the distance is really just a trip to the airport, and the pilot takes me the rest of the way. Okay, so in today's world, nothing is too far. Unless you're traveling into space, don't talk to me about going too far. It's you go where the opportunity is. So
Mm,
if it's an opportunity to meet someone, it's an opportunity to be part of a new network, to get to know people, to infiltrate circles of influences. So that way you can now, whether it's raising capital, whether it's growing your business, whether it's learning strategies from other individuals, whatever the reason might be, it's an opportunity for growth. And you can only grow so much staying within your own environment. Eventually, you're going to have to venture out just to be able to see what the rest of the world is like. Because your imagination, your thought process is limited by what's around you. Get out there, explore, learn. And the more you expose yourself to, the more successful you're going to be in business.
So I know both of us like this particular book, Business is War, right? And it talks a lot about fear. So I'm sure you would have come across like being fearful about certain things like decisions and things like that. So can you share us for like an example that you've gone through in terms of fear?
Well, the biggest fear for me is whenever I have investors' capital working in my business. So other people invested in me, and I know it's their hard-earned money, right? So if a problem comes up, I'm fearful, what if I can't solve this particular problem, whatever it might be? And I just use that fear as a motivator. It's like, all right, now I'm going to double down. I'm going to solve this problem. And I find that if you use fear as a motivator to just push yourself to keep going, it will allow you to perform a lot more effectively because now it adds more to that fire that fuels you, right? And that's how you need to treat it. You can't let fear paralyze you
Mm.
because that's the worst thing that can possibly happen. So you got to be able to channel that fear as a motivator.
Absolutely. Now, with having talked about fear, right? In this day and age, especially like this whole concept of AI, AI is so new. We didn't learn AI in school. We didn't grow up with AI. What's your thoughts about AI for those people that are fearful of the concept of AI?
Well, it's normal to be fearful of what you don't understand or what's new. So it's a normal reaction. What I would encourage people to do is get educated. And that's a very hard thing to do nowadays because AI is so big
Mm.
that it's virtually impossible to become an expert on it now. Because I've coordinated with individuals, like for example, graduates from MIT in machine learning. They've got PhDs, and I've asked them, okay, what does it take to be an expert in AI? And they just laugh and they're like, yeah, there's no such thing. It is that big. There's so many tools out there, and it's evolving so quickly. As soon as you feel like you've got a handle on it, you're already a step behind.
But it's
So
constantly learning and isn't it every single day because it's evolving
yeah,
so
it's
quickly.
not a specific AI that's constantly learning because that's true to a certain extent, but it's the number of tools, different AI tools are being released into the market. Like just a few years ago, we were at 9,000. Now we're up to over 13,000. By the time this video gets released, it might be 1,000 more. How do you keep up with that, right? So the reality is it's all about being part of a network of basically educated individuals in AI who work as a group to learn about as much as you possibly can about it and how these tools can effectively integrate into business or into your personal lives. So AI can be a very useful tool. It just needs to be used correctly. And that's where the lack of education is. And that's where the opportunity is right now in the market. Most people don't know, whether it's entrepreneurs or individuals, how to incorporate AI into their lives or their business. If
Mm.
you become an expert on what the AI tools can do, and you become an expert on how businesses work, you've got a combination of skill sets that almost nobody out there has. And that's where the value gets added.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, with success, right? Some people are like, okay, as long as I got a business, I'm successful. As long as it's just one industry, I'm successful. But you have multiple businesses or at least stakes in it, right? So you've got the I looked it up. You've got car detailing stuff. Where did that interest come about?
Well, I mean, I've always been a car guy. My father would collected cars. I started collecting cars. It's almost genetic for me, but it really came about when I started getting my vehicle serviced at this particular shop, and I noticed that there were shortfalls in the operation of business. And because I had traveled around the world, surrounded myself with entrepreneurs, I started to think like those entrepreneurs. And when I set foot in that business, I started to realize, well, you could optimize this process by doing this, or you can adjust your pricing to do that. And I kept just giving them free ideas to the point where they said, well, why don't you just come on as a partner? Because every time you come in to get your vehicle serviced, we start making more money off of everything else we do. And it's like, oh, okay, great. And that's where they brought me on as a partner. And that's how that came about. So it was just simply adding value. And if
Mm,
you surround yourself by successful entrepreneurs, you're going to start to see things differently. And it's going to open up more opportunities that you never thought you would have had. Because I had no plan to get involved in this industry as an entrepreneur. It just sort of happened organically. And it's going to
mm.
happen more and more the more you expose yourself to other entrepreneurs.
But that's the thing, you didn't just stop there though. You're also a producer.
Yes.
So
And
talk
again,
us, yeah.
that actually came out of a conversation I had on Facebook even before I started in real estate. It was just a conversation, and the gentleman I was talking to happened to be someone who was involved in a film production, and I just gave my opinion, just an objective opinion that wasn't just from the point of view of a fan of a show or something like that. It was more of practically, useful information that they could use. And it just started a conversation. We went back and forth for a while. And they said, okay, well, if you're interested, we'd like you to be a part of this, maybe as a consultant or something. I'm like, cool, okay, great. And then I heard nothing for 6 months. I'm like, okay, well, that probably fizzled out at whatever. It came and went, move on. And then I get an email saying, okay, well, we just set up your IMDb profile. Can you log in and make sure it's correct? Like, what profile? Like, what? So anyway, I logged in and they put me as a producer. And I said, heads up. I mean, I have no experience in the movie industry. I thought I was just going to give some advice. I thought that was it. And they're like, no, we'd like to bring you on as a producer. Can you be in Vegas in 2 weeks? Uh, yes. I didn't check with my wife. I didn't make any plans. I'm like, sure, I'll do it. Figure it out. So I just
Mm,
jumped in with both feet. And then as soon as I got there, I said, I've got no experience and like, not a problem. We'll teach you. And they walked me through exactly how everything was done. And I learned so much. And as a result, I was able to turn around and add value. And I said, well, because you came in with an open mind and because you're willing to help out on everything and you learned so quickly, now we want to bring you back for the next one. Are you interested? Sure. And that's how that just kind of snowballed into where I'm at now.
amazing. It's like decide and then you figure it out, isn't it, through that
Say
journey?
yes, jump in, and then figure out how you're going to do it later. You
So
can
what's
always figure
this?
it out.
What is this current film that you're doing? Is it done yet, or is it you can't talk about it
Well, I've
until
got
later?
multiple productions on the go. We just
Okay.
finished one. We're working on one right now. Uh, that's basically going through the life and legacy of a specific family in Hollywood, the Westmore family. They've been involved in makeup basically since they were doing makeup for the royal family in England, and eventually moved to the U.S., realizing that actors are doing their own makeup and doing a poor job of it. So in the earliest days of motion film, they started doing makeup.
Mm,
And that family has been basically the cornerstone of makeup in Hollywood for the last 100 years. So going through the entire history and including the gentleman that we're specifically focusing on, he's got an Oscar and I think like 7 Emmys or 9 Emmys or something. He's got a wall of awards. And we figured, okay, well, we're going to focus on him and then we're going to reach out to his network. And we're starting to get A-list celebrities. We've already got a couple already. We've already had two more that we're going to be filming likely in the next few weeks. So it's an exciting project. And it's great to meet all these people because you're putting all the best in the industry together and learning from how they got to where they are. And
mm.
it's just fascinating. So it's fun to film. It's fun to build those relationships and you learn a lot while doing it. So it's a win all the way around.
Nice, nice, nice. I'll be looking forward to seeing that for sure.
I'll definitely let you know when we release it. And if we have an early showing and there might be a few A-list celebrities that show up to that, I'll be
Yeah.
sure to let you know.
Yes, please. Now, with your journey towards the success that you have currently, right? And I know it's a lonely journey for a lot of people that head towards this direction. How would you say your relationship is with the family back home and
The
your
relationship
friends?
is good. Yeah, well, friends and family are different. Okay, it's a very different relationship. When you're talking about family, essentially, I'm looking at spouse and children. Okay, that's how I see sort of the family unit. And if you're going to become an entrepreneur, it is infinitely more helpful if your spouse is on board with that.
Mm,
And yes, it's a very lonely journey because if your spouse is not involved with you in the business, and in a lot of cases they're not, sometimes they are, and that's okay too. But if they're not, it's very important to adjust the way you communicate in your relationship because you're going to be going down this path and you'll be so focused on the business, you don't want to neglect the spouse or the children. So it's important to include them in your journey in any way you can. So whatever challenges you're dealing with, how you're overcoming them, whatever successes you have, you want to make sure that that's part of the conversation so they don't feel they've been left behind.
mm,
In regards with the friends, if they're supportive and they're positive in your life, great. If they're not, drop them and move on. There's no time for negativity. You got plenty of it be thrown at you as an entrepreneur. Don't invite negativity in family outside of the immediate family or any friends. Just get rid of the negativity.
absolutely. Like me going back to Malaysia, I don't stay with my parents anymore because I need to protect my space. And I know you could probably resonate with that. So with me, I know when no is no, and I know when to walk away. And I understand that they haven't grown out of their share or out of the box, but that's okay for me. And I know some people
Mm.
get stuck in that sense. How would you advise someone that wants to succeed but is they feel trapped in their family, maybe not their immediate family, but let's say their parents and brothers and sisters, cousins kind of thing?
Well, it's very similar to the journey that we all go through as teenagers going into adulthood. Eventually, we need to break out of that family unit because we need to start our own journey and eventually build our own family unit. If you feel trapped and unable to get out, whether it's for career progression or to become an entrepreneur or whatever the next stage of your life is, you have to break out of it. And the challenge that people have is, they're whatever situation they're in, it's some sort of routine, it's familiar. It may not be pleasant, but you know what to expect every day. When you break out of it, it's the unknown, and the unknown
Mm,
is scary. So you have to be able to face that fear and be like, no, I'm going to face it head on. This is whatever I want to get to is infinitely more important to me than the comfort I'm feeling now in whatever environment I'm in. So you have to get to that breakout point. And it's helpful to have people on your corner, whether it's a coach, whether it's a close friend who's maybe a step or two ahead of you, who's already been through that journey, can kind of hold your hand through it. It's a lot easier to get out of that if you're not alone. And that really comes down to surrounding yourself with the people that are ahead of where you are or where you want to be. And that's going to help motivate you to be able to get there.
mm, absolutely. Now, the one thing I like of what you did is you've got a son at the moment, and he's quite young. Well, I consider him young, but you've exposed him to all this amazing journey in terms of the potential of building something for himself. What's your thought process with that?
He went through the same education system that most of us went through, which basically channeled his mindset the same direction it did mine. And I didn't want him to enter into, the workforce and start down some path that everyone else is going on. I wanted to open as many doors as I could. Whether he walks through them is his choice.
Mm,
My job as a parent is to open the doors. Okay. So for me, I wanted to expose him to what the entrepreneurial world is like. So bring him to the US, bring him to an event with, you know, thousands of entrepreneurs, take him, backstage at a major event to be able to see how all of that runs, be able to meet celebrities, put him on stage and have him challenge that fear and say, okay, now that you've seen all of this, now you've got a full picture of this world as well as the world that you've been brought up in through the education system. What do you think? And that's when he made the decision. No, I want this. Now that I know that it's there, this is what I want. So I exposed him to it and then let him make the decision. And I told him, whatever decision you want, I've got your back.
mm.
And yeah, now he's getting into entrepreneurism and he's actively looking to start a business very soon.
That's nice. Now, when is too early? Like, how early should a parent expose their kids to this kind of environment?
Well, it's like saying, how do you raise a child? There's no one answer to it. Every child's going to be different. It depends on maturity level. It depends on a lot of things. Because I've seen children exposed at a very young age that maybe let it get to their head and they just kind of face planted by the time they were in their late teens because they
Mm,
thought they were bigger than the world when they were not quite. So it really depends on a child. Like for my son that you spoke of, exposing him even a few years earlier than I did would have been okay. My daughter, on the other hand, very different conversation because the whole celebrity thing that we're exposed to would get to her head and she would just face plant a few years later. So now's not the right time. So it's all a matter of knowing your children. And by the time they get old enough to be able to absorb this sort of information, you should have a rough idea of what the right time might be. So it's a case by case thing. It's hard for me to advise in general.
But like
You
for
have to know your
your
kids.
experience for yourself, right? Like how do you know when it's ready for your kids? It's I understand it's from you understanding who your kids are personally.
Yeah, uh, for like for my oldest son, I wanted to make sure that he could remain humble
Mm,
more than anything else. So the first thing I exposed him to was a number of celebrities putting him on stage, and then I watched what he did with that. And he didn't let it get to his head. He more or less kept to himself. He didn't show off to his friends. And I said, okay. So I know that he's mature enough to move on to the next step. And that is, okay, now I'm going to put you in front of all these people, introduce you to all these people, and see how he basically composes himself. And he doesn't walk around like he owns the place. He's very humble. He's open to learn, and he's learning and building relationships. And he's building relationships in the right way with the right people. And going, okay, now I know he's on the right path to be able to do this. My daughter is not ready yet. Even though she's only 2 years younger than him, I don't feel she's ready yet. That may change in the next few years, but again, that's my assessment as a parent based on how I know my children. Um, for any parent out there, it's more or less the same thing. It's about how you feel your child's going to be able to integrate effectively into this because it's overwhelming.
mm.
Entrepreneurism is overwhelming, even for us adults. So you want to make sure your child doesn't feel overwhelmed and necessarily turned off by it. You want to expose them in a positive environment that basically opens doors for them and go, okay, is this something you would be interested in? And for them to be mature enough to be able to make an accurate assessment.
Mm.
And it's a case by case.
So I'm not a parent, but from your point as a parent and building your empire and building your businesses and all this partnership, like how do you maintain that family unit while still traveling and doing business around? Like how do you bring up a family in that sense?
It really comes down to work-life choices, which is something you and I have heard many, many times. And it's something you need to look at basically not on a daily basis, but even on a minute by minute basis. So like right now, my focus is on this interview. Okay, that is a choice that I made. It's not spending time with my kids or my family or my business. It's this. This is a choice. Everything you do is a choice. And you have to juggle these choices in a way where nothing gets neglected more than it has to. And you have to prioritize certain things. So, if my daughter wants me to help her out with homework, that's a choice. Am I going to be there this time or not? She wants me there piano recital. Will I be there or not? And if I'm saying no to my daughter too many times in a short period of time, I'm neglecting that one. So it's all a matter of juggling that. And it's a challenge because the more you take on, especially when you have multiple businesses, you got half a dozen different people pulling you in different directions. And you have to make a choice. Okay, which one am I taking this time? So you have to manage the expectations of everybody of your business. You want to make sure that they're aware at certain times you may not be reachable,
Mm.
or you have to manage that with your family. Say, look, I got to prioritize the business, but I will make time on this day at this time for you.
Yeah, but every time, like I'm assuming that when you're with your wife or when you're with your family, you put your 100% attention on that and no
Yes,
business, isn't it?
yes,
So
yeah.
with
So
let's say like a spouse, right? When they're not
mm,
part of the business, do you get them involved in terms of what's happening with the businesses and the growth of it?
100%. Yeah, my wife is fully aware of everything that's happening in the business. She may have, questions, want some clarification. She doesn't make decisions in the
Mm.
business, but she's fully aware. So that way, if something comes up, she understands the context. So if I'm reading a text message and oh, it's about this, it's like, okay. So she doesn't feel offended that I'm taking my attention away from her for a few seconds while I respond to a message. She knows I'm in the middle of dealing with a crisis, or I'm responding to a client, or I'm finalizing details for a real estate deal, whatever it might be. because again, going back to that communication, because that's been communicated and I've maintained her situational awareness, it makes it easier for me to operate the business and manage those priorities in real time.
Do you get your kids involved in understanding the process, or it's like it's such an age limit, or how does it work with you?
No, I mean, for my son, I basically, in reality, I teach all my kids in the same way. I don't have them memorize things. I have them understand the process, right? And that's more the scientific background in me because two of my degrees are in science, and it's understanding how you came to that solution. It's all about the process. Because if you understand the process, you don't have to memorize the solution. You can figure out the solution each and every time. So with
Mm,
that mentality that I've brought up my children with, and same thing with conversations with my spouse or even with my kids in regards to the business, I talk about the process. Saying, look, this is what I'm trying to do, but in order to get there,
mm,
these are the steps I need to follow, and this is where I am within those steps. So that way, when they see, okay, I'm struggling with this, struggling with that, now they're starting to see where the pain points are, and it builds their situational awareness. So now they understand, okay, well, I'm doing a real estate deal, and it's going to be, this type of transaction. Okay, but it's not going to be a smooth road all the way through. We're going to run into problems here, 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 here. So now when I finally succeed, they have a better understanding of the effort that went into that success,
mm.
so they have a better appreciation of what I'm doing. So when I say, okay, we just closed the deal, they're like, okay, congrats on that. Like I know it's probably not an easy road to get there. And sure enough, but now they understand what I went through. And the more they understand, the more they're going to be open to be okay with whatever time you're taking away from them towards your business.
No, that's nice. That's good. Now, with advice to someone that doesn't know what they're doing in their business as yet, what is the ultimate advice you have for someone such?
Get a coach. First and foremost, get a coach. If you don't know what you're doing in business, you're running a marathon with a blindfold. Yeah, you might be the fastest, but if you're not running towards the finish line, it doesn't matter, right?
Mm,
So you need that direction. You need someone who is more experienced than you, who's probably been down that road more than once, who can give you that guidance. Take the blinders off.
mm.
And you're not going to be able to do that on your own if you don't know what you're doing. You can educate yourself to a certain point, but nothing replaces experience. And that's where a coach adds tremendous value.
Absolutely. No, thanks for that. I was hoping for that answer. So that's great. Now, have you ever felt any times where you feel like giving up? Because people think that we're like super people. Like, so would you have you ever in your time up to now ever felt defeated and felt like it's just a lot for you?
The only times where I felt frustrated was with bad partnerships,
Okay.
because I've had a couple of those. And it is very defeating a lot of times when you're going this together and they simply don't deliver in one way, shape, or form, or they hold the business back, or whatever the case may be. And you sit down and you go, okay, is this even worth it? I've had that conversation with myself. Is this even worth it? And you got to pull yourself out of it. And it's like, I need to get to the finish line. I need to pull through on this because I'm never going to forgive myself if I didn't give it my all.
Mm,
And when you actually commit yourself to that degree, and you've got coaches and you've got people around you, the right people around you, you're going to make it through. Even if you don't see it at the time, you will pull through. And that's a remarkable thing that is basically ingrained in all of us, is we can do things that we don't even realize we can do until we're faced with that situation. And that's just the life of an entrepreneur.
mm. Nice. Now, could you share with us your routine, your morning routine towards success?
Gosh, morning routine. It really varies from day to day and whether I travel or not. But if you take a typical day, I'm usually up, usually between 5 and 5:30 in the morning, sometimes earlier, depending on what else I got going that day or what day of the week it is. And I normally spend the first, 30 minutes of my day. I got, my morning drinks that I have, different supplements, stuff to, get me energized. And normally what I do is I do a lot of checking up on world events, and I'm just pacing. I'm just getting the blood flowing and everything else. At that point, I transition into a workout routine that varies from day to day. And I do that for about 30 minutes. And then at that point, I'm thinking about, okay, the world events or news or any emails that came in, and I'm sort of strategizing what am I going to be doing that day. So by the time 6 o'clock rolls around, I'm ready to start implementing. So at that point, I shower really quickly, have a quick breakfast, and then I'm sitting down from my computer, starting to basically strategize a day ahead. And, whether I'm doing research on something that I want to educate myself on, whether I'm following up on something that I need to follow up on, and then I start structuring basically my set of instructions for all of my businesses in that time. So by the time 8 o'clock rolls around, basically all the emails go out and it's go time.
Mm.
And it's pretty much that every single day. So every time, my team members show up for work, they're like, okay, we got the plan for the day. It's clear. They know from the moment they set in what the plan is for that day. And that's how I can always stay ahead of things. And that way, when they say, okay, well, why did you make this decision? Well, I just researched it for an hour. I got an hour long justification as to why we're doing it this way. They're like, oh, wow, okay, we're good. So they don't question it because I've done the research, I put the time in.
Mm.
And again, that's my routine to be able to stay one step ahead.
Mm. Okay, cool. And then I had a question, but I completely left my mind. So, all right. So in regards to an ultimate advice to someone that is balancing between giving up a business and actually pushing through with the business, what would your advice be?
Well, I mean, that's highly dependent on the circumstances. The question is, why are you giving up?
Mm.
Right? I need to know the why. And it's not only the why you're giving up, but why do you want to be involved in business in the first place? Like, what's your motivator? So I really want to break that down because if they don't have a clear sense of direction, then we need to clean that up first. So I need to know what destination they're trying to get to, why they want to get to that destination, why is it important to them? And it could be anything, even if it's ego, even if it's trying to build a legacy for their family, whatever the reason is, I need to know what that reason is. And is that enough to overcome the reason why you want to give up? Which one's stronger? And that's what we need to fix. So you need to get down to the root of the problem before you even get into the details of the business. And whether it's because they feel overwhelmed or they can't hire someone because hiring is such a challenge now, or they feel like they're not competitive in the industry, whatever it is, we need to get down to fundamentals first, fix that, and then decide, are we moving forward or not? And if we are, let's double down, let's strategize, and let's make you win. Otherwise, if it's not for you, that's okay. It's not for everybody. But we need to figure this out first before we invest any time trying to make you succeed. Maybe it's not a right fit for you. So we need to sort that out first.
So because you're so busy with all these businesses and decision making and family and things like that, do you actually have time for yourself? And when
Oh yeah,
do you give your time for yourself?
whenever I'm not doing anything else.
How
um,
frequent is that? Like on a
it's
daily
highly
basis,
dependent.
weekly, or yeah?
No. I mean, I don't believe in taking vacations. Like I'm not the type of person, oh, I'm going to take 2 weeks off. That's not the way I
Mm.
operate. I take time off every day. It could be 10 minutes. It could be 2 hours. I don't know. But I find time to just sort of disconnect and recharge myself. And that doesn't include sleeping because that's just a biological necessity.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I'd love to be awake 24 hours. I'd be so much more productive.
Same.
But, um, I'll take time every single day to just sort of focus on myself and just, even if it's not spending time with family or anything else, it might just be going for a walk, clearing my head, whatever the case may be. Putting a little bit of time into myself every single day is what allows me to feel like, okay, I'm ready to push again. I don't feel guilty taking all this time to myself. I'm not going to feel guilty about those 10 minutes. I just spent 10 hours on my businesses. I deserve that 10 minutes. So I don't feel guilty. But it's important to be able to reinvest in yourself because at some point you will burn out.
Mm.
And it can't happen to just about anybody. You just need to be able to make those little bits of time for yourself. And that's the case for the vast majority of people. Very few people can go 100% all the time and never burn out. So to avoid the possibility of that, I always give myself a little bit of time every single day.
Yes, that's really important. Anything else you would like to share?
I mean, I can go on for hours, but
I know.
I mean, ultimately, if you're looking to get involved in entrepreneurism, or if you're already involved in entrepreneurism, it's to your benefit to get someone there by your side to help guide you. Whether it's a coach, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a business partner, whatever it may be, you need to bring that someone in because they're offering an outside perspective, something you can never do yourself. The outside perspective is invaluable in business growth.
Hmm.
So find someone who can bring that perspective. And I promise you, if you find the right person, like yourself, for example, because I know what you can do, it's going to completely transform your business.
Absolutely. And the one thing that I love about one of the clients that I have that just started with me, I asked him the question, why did you get a coach? Because I'm always curious because there's always a tipping point on people making that decision. And he just left the business, a company he was employed, and he's studying the same company of that same industry. So he said, I just wanted to start correctly the right way without wasting time on the screen trying to figure things out. And he says, you are the ticket out in terms of me finding my way without having to, pull my hair and waste my time and money figuring things out and making all the stupid mistakes that I know I could have avoided.
Mhm. And that's very true. I mean, there's only so much you can learn online. The
Mm,
real gold nuggets are not found on ChatGPT or Google or any other resource. It's found in the experience of entrepreneurs who've been there.
mm,
So that's what you need to find. And someone like yourself, totally invaluable in a company. It's going to be so important to be able to provide that value. And I mean, same thing for me. I got a coach early on. I mean, before I even closed my first deal, I already reached out to a business coach because I knew right away there's so many potential mistakes I can make. And what scares me is the mistakes that I don't even know exist yet.
mm.
It's the unknown mistakes that I can potentially make. And that's the scary part. The ones I know about, I can sort of navigate and try and avoid. It's the unknowns that scare me. And that's where bringing a coach is so important who's already been there because they already know what those mistakes exist. So they can help start directing me away from them before I even know they're there. And that's what allowed me to scale as quickly as I did.
Absolutely. This has been a blast. Thank you for coming on and sharing all that. It's amazing stuff that I think all of us can really, benefit from. So thank you for sharing. And if
My pleasure.
anyone wants to, check out the movie, I'll put on the link in terms of what you're coming. I know whatever is coming up or been out. And if they want to follow you, I'll put in all the other stuff. So if they want to get their cars detailed in Canada, I'll put that on the description, guys. So yeah, if you like this episode, please do like, follow, and share this episode for those of you that really truly like this. But thank you, Jonathan, for coming on today.
My pleasure.